Chao Yuan looked at the broken and sunken ground before him, and the ruins that had been razed to the ground around him, falling into confusion. Who am I? Where am I? What is this ruins? Chao Yuan's last memory was still when the red moon hung in the sky, and he was tied up by Brother Zhuai. Later, as his emotions spiraled out of control, he completely lost consciousness, and he had no recollection of what happened afterward. Anyway, when he opened his eyes, the surroundings looked like they had been bombed several times with nuclear weapons, and not even a speck of house debris could be seen. This scene seemed somewhat familiar. Chao Yuan suddenly remembered that when he was surrounded by the Oracle users in Japan's human circle, it was the same scenario. A red beam of light fell from the sky, he lost consciousness, and when he woke up again, the surrounding city had disappeared, and the Oracle users before him were mostly dead or injured. What exactly happened? Just as Chao Yuan was puzzled, the charred carriage in the sky slowly stopped in front of him. Teacher Qin and Shin Qingzhu jumped down from the carriage one after another, looking at him with complex expressions. Teacher Qin. Seeing that familiar face, Shin Qingzhu was slightly stunned, then turned to look around, only to realize that he had already walked out of the fishing village and into the outside world. Teacher Qin looked him up and down. How do you feel now? Feeling okay, just a bit of a headache. Chao Yuan rubbed his eyes, feeling an inexplicable fatigue from deep within his soul. He turned to Shin Qingzhu and asked in confusion, Brother Zhuai, what exactly happened after I passed out? Why did this place become like this? How did we get out? Shin Qingzhu's expression became subtle. Undeniably, everything that had just happened had completely exceeded his understanding. Whether it was Qingyu killing Chao Yuan, the appearance of the terrifying towering shadow withstanding the laws of time, or Chao Yuan's final resurrection, all of it made him feel like a completely ignorant country bumpkin. After hesitating for a moment, he shook his head and said, Wait until Qingyu comes back, let him tell you himself. Comes back. Chao Yuan was slightly stunned hearing these words. Where is he? Shin Qingzhu fell silent. Songnan City. In the dust-filled underground cavity. Bang. In the cavity that had been silent for several years, there was suddenly a resonating boom, and a white test box lid carrying rolling cold air automatically popped open. A fair arm reached out from inside, grabbing the edge of the box, followed by a naked young man slowly sitting up. And Qingyu sat quietly in the cold air for a moment, took a long breath and muttered, The power of the Black King is even more terrifying than I imagined. In the fishing village, when the Black King emerged and Qingyu, who was closest to Chao Yuan, felt his body instantly evaporate without any chance to fight back. If it weren't for these avatars he had prepared underground in Songnan City, he would have truly died at Chao Yuan's hands. And Qingyu stood up, casually took out a clean research robe from a nearby box and put it on, wore his glasses and stood in front of a dust-covered mirror. In the mirror he had grown quite a beard on his chin, his nails were long, and his hair had grown to his shoulders, making him look like a wild man. Although this avatar was made and stored here several years ago, as time passed, the age of this body continued to increase. And because Qingyu's original body had been time-frozen for nearly a year, this body actually looked even older than his original one. The good news was that his spiritual power level returned with his soul to the avatar, remaining at the peak of the sea realm, and didn't revert to the initial level due to the body change, which was within Qingyu's expectations. Looking at his wild man-like reflection in the mirror, Qingyu didn't choose to groom himself, but quickly walked outside, his brows furrowed and expression somewhat anxious. Although he had successfully liberated the Black King, whether the Black King could break the time loop was still unknown, and whether Lin Qie and the others could survive leaving that fishing village was also uncertain. Before seeing everyone alive with his own eyes, he had no mind to care about other matters. Deep Sea. With the disappearance of the silver loop in the sky above, Lin Qie didn't feel relieved yet. He turned to Merlin and asked worriedly, Lord Merlin, my brothers. Don't worry, they're all fine, Merlin smiled. Only then did Lin Qie breathe a sigh of relief. As the time loop reached its conclusion and the red moon in the sky dissipated, Lin Qie suddenly felt the arms around his neck loosen, and Jia Lan's form uncontrollably fell towards the deep sea. Lin Qie caught Jia Lan's wrist, only to find that she had fainted. Jia Lan had been resisting the red moon's erosion through sheer willpower. Her spirit had already reached its limit, and now with the red moon's disappearance, Endless fatigue rushed to her mind, causing her to lose consciousness directly. Lin Chia sighed and picked up Jialan. Just then the surrounding seawater began to surge violently. The dried stomach walls began to writhe as if stained with blood. Lin Chia looked up at the sky and saw that at the esophagus at the top of the stomach wall, a huge seawater vortex had appeared, pulling all the water in the stomach towards the outside. This is... Lin Chia's brows furrowed tightly. It's this giant beast, Merlin calmly spoke. The time loop has been broken, and this beast revived by the red moon wasn't erased and reset by the laws of time. It's about to revive. Hearing these words, Lin Chia's expression changed slightly. Can we stop it? Stop it? Why? Merlin asked in return. Lin Chia was stunned. After it revives, won't it cause large-scale destruction? Won't it trigger some kind of catastrophe? There will indeed be a catastrophe, but it won't be primarily because of it. It's just a trigger, Merlin smiled. That red moon isn't as powerful as you imagine. Its function was just to temporarily restore some consciousness to this already dead giant beast's corpse, not truly revive it, and it won't possess the same powerful abilities it had when alive. At most, it's just a moving mythological creature corpse. A beam of light traveling through space from the moon to this sea area, completely reviving a god-level giant beast? That would be too absurd. Hearing this, Lin Chia finally understood. From the beginning, his thinking had been misled by Qin Yongrong. Under his exaggerated descriptions, he subconsciously elevated the power of the Cthulhu gods to an omnipotent level, thereby ignoring practical feasibility. While the existence of the red moon was indeed terrifying, to say that this single beam of light could completely revive a god-level giant beast was truly a fantasy. Since Wang Mian set up a time loop here, it must have been to prevent something, but if the catastrophe itself doesn't come from this revived beast, then where does it come from? Chapter 896 The Root of Catastrophe. At the bottom of the deep sea, the colossal beast's corpse, as massive as a volcano, began to tremble slightly. In the center of its grotesque face hidden in the dark waters, a single eye as large as a Ferris wheel opened slightly, revealing a crimson slit. Rolling seawater spurted from its mouth, completely clearing out the water in its stomach. It slowly floated up from the depths of the sea, like a submarine magnified countless times, moving silently and slowly along the ocean current in a certain direction. Does stopping this trigger mean we can prevent that catastrophe? Lin Chia asked again from within the beast's stomach. Since the revival of this beast would become a trigger for some catastrophe, wouldn't that mean they could prevent the catastrophe by stopping the beast's actions? Merlin shifted his gaze from the beast, his eyes profoundly deep. He shook his head slightly. Whether we stop this beast or not is meaningless now. The root of the catastrophe isn't here. If we can't solve the problem at its source, it will all be for nothing. Merlin's words left Lin Chia completely confused. He realized he could no longer follow Merlin's train of thought. Lord Merlin, have you foreseen something? Lin Chia couldn't help but ask as he looked at Merlin's eyes flickering with star marks. As the originator of prophecy, Merlin could peer into the tracks of fate. Past, present, and future couldn't escape his eyes. I've seen most of fate's trajectory and I know roughly how things will unfold. Merlin extended his hand, pointing to Yuan, stuck in the stomach wall in the distance. But the owner of this blade has altered the timeline, causing fate to fluctuate. There are still some crucial parts one can't see clearly. So I plan to personally visit the source of all this. The source of the catastrophe? Lin Chia asked puzzledly. Where is it? This beast's destination is where the source of this catastrophe lies. Merlin paused, turned to Lin Chia and smiled. Lord Chia, you'll need to come with me. Me? When Lord Nyx was discharged, she left you the Black Knight Origin as a gift. Unfortunately, Origin represents the source of laws and one person can only possess one Origin, so I can't give you a second one. Therefore, I've prepared a different gift for you. What gift? Lin Chia's eyes lit up. This wasn't like receiving red envelopes during New Year's. Lin Chia wouldn't decline. After all, any gift from these deities would significantly boost his power. Nyx's gift had given him the qualification to become a god, so Merlin's prepared gift shouldn't be too shabby either. You'll know when we reach the source, Merlin smiled mysteriously. Lin Chia nodded, then seemed to remember something and looked down at the unconscious Jialan in his arms. What about her? She. Merlin's gaze fell on Jialan and he suddenly froze. Those profound eyes narrowed as star marks crossed his pupils, as if peering into something. His brows furrowed increasingly tight, seeming somewhat puzzled. "What's wrong, Lord Merlin?" Lin Chia noticed Merlin's unusual behavior and asked curiously. "Nothing." After pondering for a moment, Merlin replied, "She should come with us too." "All right." Merlin glanced at the stomach wall above, calmly sat down and said, "It should take quite some time before we reach the source. Before that, let's handle another matter." Lin Chia was stunned. "What matter?" Merlin smiled and pointed at himself. "You haven't drawn my last ability yet." Divine Mental Hospital. Lin Chia, wearing a white coat, stood alone in the center of the courtyard, looking at the floating wheel panel before him, taking a deep breath. "Lord Merlin, how should I draw?" "Since you've already drawn an origin from Nyx, the final 1% area on my panel is now in an undrawn state," Merlin's voice echoed in his ears. "But all other abilities can be drawn. Just tell me which one you want." Like Nyx, after reaching 95% treatment progress, Merlin could see all the panels in this hospital, including his own ability wheel. While Merlin appeared calm saying this, his heart was actually bleeding inside. He could already foresee that after Lin Chia selected an ability, he would have to use time reversal magic repeatedly to keep drawing, just like when drawing the Black Knight origin. His already sparse hair would fall out even more. But this was Lin Chia's last chance to draw his abilities. What could he do? He had helped when Nyx was discharged, so now that it was his turn to leave, how could he stand idly by? Wouldn't that be losing face? Fortunately, this should be the last time he helps Lin Chia cheat if nothing unexpected happens. Lin Chia focused on the wheel, and as Merlin said, that mysterious black area had disappeared from the wheel. Fire Magic Mastery, Lightning Magic Mastery, Space Magic Mastery, Eye of Wisdom, Abyss Magic Mastery, Prophecy, Astrology. Lin Chia's gaze swept across the wheel as he fell into deep thought. Previously, when drawing abilities, he had always closed his eyes and spun the wheel, leaving everything to fate. This was the first time he had the privilege to choose an ability himself. Praise the god of magic. Being able to choose his own ability felt great, but similarly Lin Chia began to struggle. Which one should he pick? After pondering alone for a long while, Lin Chia still raised his head and asked, "Lord Merlin, which one do you think I should choose?" Outside the hospital, Merlin, sitting opposite Lin Chia, smiled. "This kid is quite clever, isn't he?" Since he didn't know what to choose, he might as well ask Merlin directly. After all, these were all his abilities and Merlin knew best which ones were most useful. Moreover, he could foresee future fate trajectories, so his choice for Lin Chia would naturally be the most suitable. Merlin opened his mouth and slowly named an ability. Lin Chia's gaze fell on a spot on the wheel, his eyes immediately brightening. "Then this one it is." Lin Chia made his choice. He began to spin the wheel, and as the pointer rotated rapidly, Merlin sighed, his heart tightening. After this round, how much hair he would have left was up to fate. After 36 consecutive attempts, Lin Chia still hadn't drawn that ability. As time reversal formations were deployed one after another, Merlin's hair fell like snow, and his expression was extremely bitter. After another time reversal, Lin Chia looked at the stiff Merlin and couldn't help asking, "Lord Merlin, are you all right? If it's too much, should I try drawing a different ability?" Merlin's lips twitched slightly, and he forced himself to appear calm as he said, "No need to change, it's just a bit of wear and tear. Keep drawing." "All right." Lin Chia adjusted his breathing, closed his eyes and turned the wheel again. As the pointer swept across different ability zones, Merlin's heart tightened, and the anticipation in his eyes was almost overflowing. Finally, under his fixed gaze, the pointer slowly stopped in a certain area. Merlin's eyes lit up with relief. Lin Chia opened his eyes, saw where the pointer had stopped, and a look of joy appeared in his eyes as well. He had drawn it. The wheel's body gradually dissipated, leaving only that ability zone which transformed into a black light and surged into Lin Chia's body. After a moment, a line of small text appeared before him. Merlin's Forbidden Grimoire. The Forbidden Book of Merlin, God of Magic and Prophecy, contains numerous forbidden spells unknown to the world, including the Chapter of Life-Taking with supermagical mass destruction capabilities, the Chapter of Unconventional Magic, with bizarre but specially useful spells, and the Chapter of Sealing, recording various system-transcending sealing magic. The moment he saw these words, large amounts of information were automatically imprinted in Lin Chia's mind. He frowned slightly and stood there for quite a while before fully digesting it all. Feeling the forbidden spell knowledge added to his mind, Lin Chia let out a long breath. Did it work? Merlin asked. Yes. A satisfied expression appeared on Merlin's face as he reminded, the forbidden spells in the grimoire are different from other magic, they can't be used casually, especially when your spiritual power level isn't high. If you try to forcefully activate most of these forbidden spells now, you might be drained instantly. Among the small portion you can use, most require drawing magic circles in advance, even preparing sacrificial materials to substitute for magical components, plus extensive incantations to barely activate them. Of course, the power and effects of these forbidden spells are far greater than conventional magic. Lin Chia pondered thoughtfully, so you're saying these forbidden spells are mostly only suitable for prepared position battles? Exactly. Approval appeared in Merlin's eyes. Of course, once your own strength is powerful enough, you can also cast them instantly without magic circles or incantations. Lin Chia nodded. He withdrew his consciousness from the Divine Psychiatric Hospital and slowly opened his eyes, looking at the pitch-black esophagus of the giant beast above him, and couldn't help asking, Lord Merlin, what exactly is this giant beast? This. Merlin paused. It's called Bakakujira, a legendary sea beast from the Japanese pantheon. Although it's huge, it actually doesn't have much attacking power. Japanese pantheon? Lin Chia asked in surprise. I thought it was a Cthulhu mythos creature. Merlin shook his head and pointed upward, through the beast's stomach and seawater, where a bright moon hung in the night sky. Cthulhu, they're all up there. Seeing that Merlin seemed to really know everything, Lin Chia couldn't contain himself and was about to ask, but Merlin unhurriedly closed his eyes and began to rest. Lord Merlin. Some things you'll naturally know when the time comes. Knowing too much now wouldn't be good for you, Merlin said slowly. Seeing Merlin unwilling to say more, Lin Chia shrugged and could only sit down where he was. His spiritual power spread out, sensing the flow of ocean currents through the beast's stomach. The deep sea was dark and chaotic, with no way to tell which direction they were heading. Just then Lin Chia suddenly thought of a question. In the timeline he had seen, Wang Mian had traveled upstream in the river of time, breaking through the loop, and similarly fell into the deep ocean currents, disappearing without a trace. So where was Wang Mian now? Human circle. Surging seawater crashed against the black cliff, creating splashes of white foam. Under the azure sky, a girl wearing a black kimono with cherry blossoms sat quietly at the edge of the coastal cliff, resting her head on her hand while staring absent-mindedly at the endless sea. The sea breeze brushed her cheeks, lifting a strand of hair, and the light pink cherry blossom hairpin cast a faint glow in the sunlight. A paper-folded long sword hung at her waist. While she was lost in thought, several men wearing black kimonos walked up behind her, bowed respectfully and spoke softly. Family head, it's about time we should head back. Wait a little longer, the girl said calmly. The men exchanged glances, all seeing the helplessness and difficulty in each other's eyes. Just then a man slowly walked up from behind them, also wearing a black kimono with cherry blossoms, though the number of blossoms on his was only half of the girl's. He patted their shoulders, gesturing for them to withdraw. The men bowed slightly and turned to leave. Kazami Takuya stood behind the girl, his kimono gently swaying in the breeze. He let out a long sigh. Family head, that person won't come back. He never belonged here in the first place. I know, Yuzurina gazed at the distant horizon murmuring, but what if? Kazami Takuya smiled helplessly. I understand how you feel, but isn't coming to wait every other day too frequent? People outside are saying that this coastline has been claimed by the Kazami family. Let them say what they want. Yuzurina sat cross-legged at the edge of the cliff, closing her eyes amidst the sea breeze and sound of waves. This was where she first met Lin Chia and pulled him from the sea, where the miracle that changed her fate began. Although Lin Chia had left, she still came here regularly, foolishly waiting for her miracle to return. She was the brilliantly intelligent head of the Kazami family, yet in this matter she was as stubborn as a fool. After a long while, Yuzurina's eyes were getting tired. She sighed, slowly stood up from the cliff and prepared to turn and leave. Just then something caught her peripheral vision, making her freeze and look back. Among the surging waves, a figure with silver hair and wearing a mask was being carried by the water like a statue, washing up on the nearby shore. The swaying rain fell on the deserted mountain path as a figure in a pure black kimono held a red paper umbrella, climbing the steps. The rain dripped from the edges of the paper umbrella. As the umbrella lifted slightly, a handsome face was reflected in the water droplets. Ring, ring, ring. A crisp phone ring sounded. The figure paused briefly, hesitated for a moment, then pulled out a phone from within and held it to their ear. Hello. Hey. Brother Amamiya. Ah, little Yuzuri? What's the matter? I went to that cliff again today. Guess what I found? Hearing the excitement in Yuzuri's voice, Amamiya Seiki was stunned, thinking of a possibility, a glimmer of hope flashing in his eyes. Has he returned? No, I found an old man. This old man also drifted here with the ocean current, and when I found him his time was frozen too, just like Brother Shinya back then. Yuzuri grew more excited as she spoke. I feel like he might be from the same place as Brother Shinya. An old man from the same place as Lin Shinya? Wouldn't that be Desya? Amamiya Seiki raised an eyebrow. Can he understand what we're saying? Doesn't seem like it. After he woke up he just sat silently in the corner, ignoring everything I say to him. I see. Once I'm done with what I'm handling I'll come to the Kazumetsuri house to take a look. Brother Amamiya, haven't you found the last Magatsukami yet? Not yet. Alright then, I'll wait for you at the Kazumetsuri house. Amamiya Seiki hung up the phone and walked along the mountain path for a long while. After searching the entire mountain he sighed helplessly. Was Shota's prophecy wrong again today? He shook his head, held his paper umbrella and turned to walk down the mountain path. Yesterday at 4 p.m., another group assault incident occurred at Shinsaibashi. 8 drunk violent residents broke into a jewelry store with knives, stabbed the store owner 16 times, and stole all valuable items. The store owner fell and begged passers-by for help, but no one extended a helping hand. He ultimately died from excessive blood loss. As of yesterday, within this week, Osaka has experienced 132 consecutive cases of violent attacks by pedestrians, with casualties involving thousands. The Osaka Police Department lacks peacekeeping personnel. Currently, the Black Kill Group has intervened with armed forces, replacing the police in suppressing all violent riot incidents in the Kansai region to maintain order. Here, Dawn Radio reminds all residents to avoid going out unless necessary. If you experience symptoms such as red eyes, insomnia, or unexplained agitation, please seek isolation treatment at the nearest hospital as soon as possible. Click. In the Japanese-style courtyard of the Kazumetsuri house, Yuzuri turned off the radio switch and stood up from the tatame. Not long ago the Nightfall team had cut down Pure Land, shutting down 92% of electronic devices within the human circle. All televisions and electronic displays were unusable, and all TV stations were shut down. Now throughout Japan only radio, the least energy-consuming broadcast method, could be used to transmit information. The world is getting more and more chaotic. Yuzuri sighed, went to the kitchen to make a cup of tea, held it in her hands and walked to the corner of the room. There a white-haired old man was staring out the window at the falling cherry blossoms, lost in thought. A gentle breeze blew, lifting his gray hair at the temples. A few pink cherry blossoms fell on his wrinkled hands with the wind. He sat there blankly, his eyes dim and lifeless, like a dispirited stone statue. In his hand he clutched a mask with the character King Wong written on it. A fine crack ran through the center of the mask, seemingly from hitting something. "Grandpa, would you like some water?" Yuzuri held out the teacup in front of the old man, speaking softly. Wang Mian remained motionless. Yuzuri pursed her lips, placed the steaming teacup beside him, and patiently began making hand gestures, trying to convey that the tea wasn't poisoned and was safe to drink. After gesturing for a long time, Wang Mian still ignored her, remaining completely still. Yuzuri, who had worked up a sweat from all the effort, seemed to get a bit angry. She stood up from the tatami, pouting as she muttered to herself, "How can someone be so stupid? Can't understand even after all that gesturing. Seems like not all Desya people are as smart as Brother Shinya." Hearing the last half of the sentence, Wang Mian slightly startled. He suddenly turned to look at Yuzuri, opened his cracked lips and asked in somewhat awkward Japanese, "Desya? How do you know about Desya?" This time it was Yuzuri's turn to be stunned. "You can understand Japanese?" Yuzuri stomped her feet in anger. "Then why didn't you respond when I was talking to you all this time?" Wang Mian stared straight into her eyes and repeated his question, "How do you know about Desya?" "Because Brother Shinya drifted here from the sea too, and his body was also frozen in time then, just like when you arrived. Brother Shinya told me he came from Desya." "Brother Shinya? That's Asaha Shinya." Yuzuri paused, then added, "His original name was Lin Shinya." Lin Shinya. Hearing this familiar name, a glimmer of light flashed in Wang Mian's eyes. He leaned against the wall, letting out a bitter smile. What a coincidence! After being awakened by Yuzuri, it took Wang Mian only a short time to realize where he was. As the captain of the mask team, he knew about the existence of human circles in various divine countries within the mist, and he had recently heard about Nightfall as return from Japan's human circle, so he roughly knew about the situation inside the human circle. Most importantly, as a divine proxy, he had promised the god of time that he would retrieve something from Takamagara. To retrieve this item, Wang Mian had been preparing for a long time, which naturally included learning Japanese and analyzing Japanese culture. He knew that one day he would have to embark on a journey to find Takamagara. However, he never imagined that before he could actively search for Takamagara, he would be directly swept into Japan's human circle by ocean currents, and the first person he saw upon opening his eyes would know Lin Shinya. All of this was too coincidental. Previously, Wang Mian would have been full of curiosity to explore this human circle and search for traces of Takamagara, but now, he wasn't in the mood. The human circle, Takamagara, and his promise to the god of time, none of it mattered anymore. The moment Wang Mian was awakened by Yuzuri on the shore and his time-frozen state was released, his first thought was to immediately travel back in time to before Mask entered the fishing village, to prevent everything from happening to save his brothers' lives. But he discovered he couldn't, because he didn't have enough lifespan left. The Time Bandit allows him to return to the past and change history without being affected himself, but the prerequisite is that he must use his own lifespan to bear this causality. After the second failed time reversal in the fishing village, his age had approached 60, and in the final race against the River of Time after breaking through the ceiling, although he successfully escaped the loop, it consumed nearly 10 years of his life. Although Wang Mian couldn't precisely sense how much life he had left, he had a premonition that he only had 2 years of life remaining at most. 2 years of life wasn't enough for him to perform time reversal. He could no longer go back. In Wang Mian's mind, those familiar faces flashed by, and Vortex's words still echoed in his mind. "As long as you can outrun the River of Time, one day we will all return behind you." Wang Mian's fists clenched tightly. He had tried his best, he had bet everything to outrun the River of Time, but they could never return behind him again. At this moment Wang Mian was in utter despair. "Do you know Brother Chie?" Seeing Wang Mian's reaction, Yulina suddenly became excited. "Has Brother Chie gone back? How is he doing in Daxia?" Seeing the expectation about to overflow from Yulina's eyes, Wang Mian remained silent for a moment before nodding. "He's doing well." A smile bloomed on Yulina's small face, her eyes curved like crescents. All her previous resentment and anger completely vanished, and her attitude toward Wang Mian took a complete 180-degree turn. "Grandpa, what would you like to eat? I'll have someone make it for you right away." "Is this your first time in Japan? Is there anywhere you'd like to go? I can take you around. If you're feeling bored, I have many popular hosts under my command. I can have them keep you company. Could you tell me more about Brother Chie's life in Daxia?" Under Yulina's relentless offensive, Wang Mian helplessly closed his eyes. Just as he was about to say something, a huge boom suddenly came from the sky. Boom! The earth trembled slightly and a blood-colored hue appeared in the distant sky. Yulina's expression changed as she suddenly looked up toward the direction of the boom. After hesitating for a moment, she stood up from Wang Mian's side. "Grandpa, please wait here, I need to go out for a while." Yulina's hand rested on her waist, drawing 1,000 cranes out half an inch. The blade immediately transformed into countless paper cranes, carrying her body as they swept out the window and quickly flew into the clear sky. Seeing this scene, A look of surprise appeared in Wang Mian's turbid eyes. He stared at the blood-colored sky in the distance, and somehow felt an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Zor. Wang Mian seemed to think of something, his pupils slightly contracting. How could this be possible? He stood up from the corner of the room and without activating his divine realm he drew out Yuan, his form transforming into a white light as he rushed away in the direction Yulina had left. Boom! Under the blood-colored sky, several skyscrapers collapsed with a rumble, rolling dust billowed up, and a huge shadow heavily crashed from the sky to the ground, making the earth resonate with a humming sound. It was a completely black monster about 100 meters tall, its body flowing with nauseating foul liquid, its crimson eyes wide open in anger, staring fixedly at the white-clothed figure swooping down from the clouds, letting out sharp shrieks. In the streets around it, countless residents screamed as they fled the area, while massive stone fragments rained down like droplets. At this moment, streaks of spear marks appeared from the void, precisely shattering each boulder, saving hundreds of ordinary residents who hadn't yet escaped the scene. That tall white-clothed figure holding a long spear steadily landed on top of a high-rise building beside the monster. His long white hair danced in the wind, and those cross-star-shaped eyes calmly observed the angrily howling monster, slightly narrowing. Has the health bar reached the execution line? Buy vitamins and supplements. He muttered to himself. The monster covered in black liquid struggled to get up from the ground, but the white-clothed figure slightly raised his hand, and a flash of light appeared above the monster's head. Item selection. A-rank item, Demon Suppression Pillar. A thick black pillar crashed down from the sky like a heavy hammer, striking the monster's chest. The monster's form violently shuddered, and dense spider-web cracks appeared on the ground beneath it. Its body, which was about to stand up, was firmly pressed back down. The white-clothed figure lightly leaped from the top of the building, the long spear in his hand vanishing into a white light, while simultaneously, a golden short blade appeared in his grip. Item selection. S-rank execution item, Blade of Obliteration. His figure moved like white lightning, crossing hundreds of meters in an instant, the blade of obliteration in his hand precisely piercing the monster's throat. Dim blood splattered from the monster's neck onto his clothes and face. He calmly pulled out the short blade from his hand, his blood-stained white clothes slightly fluttering, while the monster beneath him had already ceased breathing. The next moment numerous paper cranes flew down from the sky, converging into the form of a young girl, who stood beside the monster's corpse. Seeing this girl, the tall white-clothed figure's eyes brightened, and a sunny smile bloomed on his blood-stained face as he waved to her. "Sister, why did you come?" Seeing the monster corpse beneath Yuli Langbai, Yulina slightly relaxed and smiled. "I was just worried about you. Since this corpse beast's location wasn't far from the Kazisai house, I came to check." She stepped forward to Yuli Langbai, stood on tiptoe and reached out to wipe the blood stains from his face, but she was too short compared to him and had difficulty reaching his face. Seeing this, Yuli Langbai obediently half-squatted down, letting Yulina gradually wipe his face. "Sister, you don't need to worry about me, I'm now the strongest person in this country," Yuli Langbai said with a gentle smile. "No matter how strong you are, you're still my brother." Yulina finished cleaning Yuli Langbai's face, then glanced at his blood-stained white clothes and said, "When we get home, take off your clothes and I'll wash them for you." Okay." Just as Yuli Langbai was about to stand up, he slightly froze, his gaze falling on a spot not far behind Yulina, where an elderly man with white hair stood quietly. Sensing the aura emanating from him, Yuli Langbai's expression became serious, those cross-star eyes full of vigilance. He stepped forward, his tall figure shielding Yulina behind him. Meanwhile, Wang Mian's gaze fell entirely on the crimson-eyed monster's corpse. His expression was extremely unpleasant. He sensed the aura of the red moon on this monster's corpse. Violent, frenzied, intelligence-reducing. Wang Mian couldn't be mistaken. He had just risked everything to escape from that fishing village, and the impression of that red moon was too deep. Moreover, the red moon's aura on this monster before him was far more intense than that in the fishing village. Wang Mian thought everything was over after leaving that fishing village, but he never imagined that ocean currents had carried him to Japan's human circle, thousands of miles away, where he would discover the red moon's aura again. Was it coincidence? Or Wang Mian stared at the monster's corpse, his face extremely gloomy. Who are you? Yuzuri Takashiro looked at the void above Wang Mian's head and asked coldly. Yuzuri Nana saw Wang Mian and showed surprise in her eyes. She tugged at Yuzuri Takashiro's clothes and explained, I found him at the cliff today. He's also from Desya and knows brother Chie. Hearing this, Yuzuri Takashiro's expression softened slightly, but vigilance remained hidden in the depths of his eyes. Where did this monster come from? Wang Mian looked down at the monster's corpse and asked in broken Japanese, his expression extremely serious. Corpse beast. Yuzuri Nana glanced at the monster and shook her head. We don't know where they come from anyway. These things have been appearing frequently across Japan lately, and both their frequency and numbers are increasing. Not just one. Wang Mian's brow furrowed even more. When did it start? Just recently, a few days after Brother Chie and others returned to their country, the first one appeared. Yuzuri Nana answered thoughtfully. Wang Mian looked up at the sky, where under the azure blue, a faint moon shadow hung in the clouds, without any red tinge. This was a normal moon. Strange, there's no red moon here, so why are monsters with red moon's aura appearing? Where do they come from? Divine God's Mental Hospital. Lin Chia walked out of the office holding a steaming cup of tea, leaned against the corridor and watched the battle between Sun Wukong and Gilgamesh in the courtyard. The revived whale was still traveling in the deep sea, with no knowing when it would reach its destination. Jialan was still unconscious and Merlin was resting with his eyes closed. With nothing to do, Lin Chia returned to the Divine God's Mental Hospital to pass time. As Merlin had said after he left, Sun Wukong and Gilgamesh still maintained Merlin's schedule with perfect coordination. Going out on time, drinking on time, fighting on time and finishing on time. Those who knew understood they were patients here. Those who didn't might think this was some strictly managed military prison. While Lin Chia was watching the intense battle in the courtyard, his peripheral vision caught something. After hesitating for a moment, he walked with his teacup to the steps nearby. Bragi was sitting there alone, supporting his head, staring ahead lost in thought. What are you thinking about? Lin Chia patted his shoulder and sat down beside him. Director. Bragi saw Lin Chia and sighed dejectedly. He glanced at the two figures emanating killing intent in the courtyard and said, Uncle Merlin left and I feel I'm the only normal person left in this hospital. Lin Chia didn't know how to explain to Bragi that in some sense he wasn't exactly normal either. Actually, you could try to integrate with them, Lin Chia suggested after some hesitation. Bragi looked at them with a strange expression. I can't fight, how can I get along with them? Besides, they all have bad tempers. Now that Uncle Merlin is gone, if they get violent one day and want to vent their anger by beating me, I won't even be able to protect myself. Lin Chia's mouth twitched. They're patients like you, not bandits. How could they beat you up for no reason? However, hearing these words made Lin Chia somewhat emotional. Now that Nyx and Merlin had been discharged, Bragi staying with Sun Wukong and Gilgamesh was like a helpless sheep mixed in with a wolf pack, watching two fierce wolves fight each other daily. It's no wonder his mental state would become depressed. Just as Lin Chia thought of this, the progress bar above Bragi's head jumped. But this time not forward, but backward. Bragi treatment progress. 74%. The treatment progress dropped from 75% back to 74%. Looking at Bragi's melancholic face, Lin Chia's expression darkened. Good grief, of all the mental patients I've treated, this is the first time I've seen a progress bar that can move backward. And for such a ridiculous reason. At this rate, the treatment progress Bragi had built up with such difficulty would probably drop back down in a few months. No, absolutely not. Lin Chia's brain started working at high speed. In the distant courtyard, Sun Wukong and Gilgamesh, who were fighting earth-shatteringly, glanced at the time on the wall. The golden cudgel and sword of divine authority clashed one more time, and under the surging airflow, both retreated simultaneously, tacitly stopping their attacks. After their arrogant and majestic gazes friction in the air for a moment, both showed disdainful expressions on their faces and walked out of the courtyard without looking back. They hadn't walked a few steps when a pair of hands landed on their shoulders. Sun Wukong and Gilgamesh turned their heads simultaneously to see Lin Chia's serious and earnest face as he slowly said to them, "You two come with me for a moment, I have something to tell you." Bragi watched the three people whispering in the distance. He saw Lin Chia saying something and Sun Wukong and Gilgamesh's expressions became strange, their gazes occasionally drifting to him. Bragi couldn't help but shudder. After hesitating for a moment he stood up from the steps, somewhat panicked, left the courtyard area, and walked straight back to his second-floor ward, closing the door behind him. Looking at the empty room, Bragi let out a long sigh and sat down at his desk. He took out pen and paper from the drawer and began writing earnestly. "My beloved Eden. As I mentioned in my last letter, the senior who lived next door to me has left. He was someone I greatly admired, wise, powerful and always so calm and reliable. After he left, I feel somewhat awkward here, like I can't integrate into this place anymore." Bragi wrote 3 pages of letter seriously, adding as usual at the end, "I miss you so much, when will we be able to reunite?" He put the letter into an envelope, placed it in the mailbox at the corner of the desk and sat alone in his chair, lost in thought. Lin Chia watched as Sun Wukong and Gilgamesh left, letting out a long sigh. Everything that needed to be discussed had been discussed and he had done all he could. Whether things would develop according to his wishes was now beyond his control. After all, they were the great sage equal to heaven and the oldest hero king in the world. Their actions and thoughts could not possibly be influenced by Lin Chia. They would only act according to their own will. Lin Chia took a sip of tea and was about to return to his office to rest when, just as he turned the corridor corner, he saw Li Yifei leading a group of people out of the bathroom. "Hey, Chia." Li Yifei saw Lin Chia and removed his face mask, waving at him. "Li Yifei?" Lin Chia asked in surprise, "Aren't you the general manager? Why are you personally leading people to clean toilets?" Li Yifei raised an eyebrow. "I've been leading the cleaning department to clean toilets all this time. Didn't you assign Wan Kai to official duties?" "When did I assign Wan Kai?" Halfway through his sentence, Lin Chia froze. Then, as if remembering something, his mouth opened involuntarily. Oh no. He had completely forgotten about this. Without another word, Lin Chia turned and ran towards his office. In the dark, narrow corridor, Lin Chia, wearing his white coat, hurried through the empty prison. He finally remembered why he hadn't seen Wan Kai in the hospital lately. After killing the Thunder Beast with Zhou Ping's chopsticks, its soul was confined to the hospital. To increase the Thunder Beast's fear value and turn it into an orderly, he had specifically assigned Wan Kai to intimidate it. So much time had passed, and with one thing after another happening in Great Xiao, Lin Chia had completely forgotten about this matter. Wonder how the Thunder Beast is doing now? It was a god-level spirit after all. Nothing serious should have happened, right? Lin Chia quickly walked to the cell door where the Thunder Beast was held, and as soon as he looked inside he froze in place. In the narrow cell, a deep blue cat was curled up in the corner, noticeably thinner than before, with traces of vomit at the corners of its mouth. Its eyes stared blankly ahead, showing neither despair nor pain, only the hollow emptiness that follows a storm. And opposite to it, a pug wearing a tailcoat was standing on its hind legs, pressed against the cell bars, swaying its body seductively. After staring at its bizarre and awkward dance moves for a while, Lin Chia barely recognized that the dog seemed to be attempting to pole dance. It opened its mouth, panting heavily, its dog lips curled up as it seductively winked at the cat in the corner. The dazed deep blue cat in the corner suddenly trembled. Its eyes rolled back and it promptly fainted, foaming at the mouth. Lin Chia. Without a word, Lin Chia grabbed Wan Kai by the mysteriously acquired tailcoat and pulled him out of the cell. Woof. Hello, Director. Wan Kai greeted upon seeing Lin Chia. What have you been doing? Lin Chia looked at the unconscious blue cat in the cell and couldn't help but criticize. I told you to discipline it, not attempt murder. Wan Kai blinked, seemingly not understanding the difference between discipline and attempted murder. Lin Chia sighed and asked, how long has it been like this? Like what? Foaming at the mouth, fainting. Wan Kai thought for a moment. At first it was about once a day, then the frequency gradually decreased. Now it's about once every 2 or 3 days, though each time it stays unconscious for a day. Lin Chia. Well, regardless of Wan Cai's methods, as long as the Thunder Beast's fear value reached the required 60, it would be fine. Otherwise, Lin Chia would have to put in a lot more effort to turn it into a hospital orderly. Lin Chia turned to look at the panel in the prison. Prisoner. Thunder Beast. Current fear value, 673. Lin Chia's mouth twitched violently when he saw the red 673 on the panel. He vaguely remembered that before Wan Kai started disciplining the Thunder Beast, its fear value was only in the 20s. What kind of inhuman torture had the Thunder Beast endured during this time? Lin Chia sighed and woke the Thunder Beast from its unconscious state. It suddenly sprang up from the ground, quickly retreating to the corner of the cell, covering its eyes with its small paws, its body curling into a ball and trembling uncontrollably. Thunder Beast, Lin Chia called out. The Thunder Beast froze, raising its face full of terror and helplessness, staring at Lin Chia for a moment before tears welled up in its eyes. Seeing the Thunder Beast's miserable expression, Lin Chia awkwardly coughed twice, cleared his throat and slowly spoke. Now you have two choices, either die or... Meow. You choose death. Lin Chia's expression became strange, and seeing the Thunder Beast's determined look of seeking death, he fell silent for a moment before modifying the options. Two choices: either become my orderly, or I'll put it back in with you for 10 years. The Thunder Beast's body shook violently. 2 minutes later, wearing deep green orderly uniform with a nameplate on its chest, the Thunder Beast listlessly followed Lin Chia out of the underground prison. Under Wan Cai's drooling and silly grinning expression, the Thunder Beast surrendered in half a second, obediently signing a contract with Lin Chia to become the 432nd orderly of the Divine Mental Hospital, and also its first God-level orderly. Thunder Beast. No, from now on I'll call you Laifu. Lin Chia didn't even think before casually giving this Japanese divine beast from Takamagara a thoroughly great Xia cat name. Do you know about Hua Jing? Hearing these words, Laifu paused slightly and meowed weakly. Although the Thunder Beast was a Japanese divine beast and couldn't speak Chinese, after becoming an orderly at the Divine Mental Hospital, it established a mental link with Lin Chia, allowing them to understand each other despite the language barrier. You're saying it's like you, also a divine beast from Takamagara? Lin Chia paused before asking again, then do you know when it left Takamagara? Laifu shook its head. After I became the spirit of the Yata mirror, I never returned to Takamagara. What about the gods of Takamagara? Didn't they come looking for you? At first, Lord Takamikazuchi would come once a year to maintain and observe the situation within the human circle and collect faith power. But later he never came again. What about the other Takamagara deities? They never appeared either, as if they had vanished, completely abandoning this human circle. Vanished? Lin Chia's brows furrowed. When did this start? Laifu thought for a moment before responding uncertainly. Probably about 50 or 60 years ago? Human circle. Inside the Kazumatsuri family courtyard, Wang Mian and Yuri Tekishiro sat on opposite sides of the dining table, silently observing each other. For Yuri Tekishiro, this was his first time meeting a human whose level was so close to his own, naturally making him very curious. For Wang Mian, the young person before him, who was also at humanity's peak level, was incredibly young. How old was he? 17? How did someone so young become one of humanity's peak existences within this human circle? Tekishiro, go get a few more pairs of chopsticks. Brother Amamiya will be joining us for dinner. Yuri Nei called out from the kitchen, wearing an apron and poking half her body out, addressing the two who were sizing each other up in the living room. Okay, sister. Yuri Tekishiro shifted his gaze from Wang Mian and went to the kitchen to search, but couldn't find the chopsticks. He simply reached into empty space and conjured 2 pairs of golden chopsticks out of thin air. Grade E tool, golden purple dragon chopsticks. Here you go. Yuri Tekishiro walked up to Wang Mian and, after a moment's hesitation, extended the chopsticks to him. Thank you. Wang Mian accepted the chopsticks, nodding slightly in gratitude. Yuri Tekishiro returned to his seat, and as they faced each other, silence fell once again. Click. At that moment, the sliding door was pushed open, and a handsome young man wearing a black kimono stood calmly at the doorway, carrying a wooden box on his back. Brother Amamiya. Yuri Tekishiro's face showed a gentle smile upon seeing him. How have you been feeling lately? Amamiya Haruki entered the house, placing the wooden box on the ground as he asked. Very well. Yuri Tekishiro stood up, setting out bowls and chopsticks for Amamiya Haruki while asking, What about you, brother? Have you found the last Magatsukami? Not yet. Amamiya Haruki shook his head. Lately Shota's prophecies have either been very vague or incorrect. Finding the last Magatsukami might take some more time. Would you like me to help you look, brother? Better not. The frequency of corpse beast appearances has been increasing lately, and you need to guard this place. I can handle this myself. All right. Amamiya Haruki sat down in his place, finally turning his gaze to the white-haired elderly man sitting on the other side. Hello. Amamiya Haruki politely began, I'm Amamiya Haruki. Wang Mian was silent for a moment. Wang Mian. You're from Great Xiao? Yes. After dinner I'll take you to meet someone. You might know them. Amamiya Haruki's tone was very calm. Upon hearing these words, Wang Mian's eyes flashed with confusion, but after a moment's hesitation he still nodded. Hot hot hot. Yuri Ne walked barefoot on the tatame, taking small steps as she brought out steaming dishes one by one, quickly filling the entire table. After Yuri Ne took her seat she cleared her throat, raised her fruit juice and said with a smile. To welcome our friend from Great Xiao, Brother Chia's friend, cheers. Cheers. Yuri Takeshiro and Amamiya Haruki supportively raised their glasses, and 3 pairs of eyes turned to Wang Mian, who sat silently to the side, seemingly waiting for him to raise his glass. Wang Mian stared at the glass before him, his aged eyes devoid of any vitality, and let out a long sigh. He stood up and, using the etiquette he had learned from books, bowed slightly to the 3. I'm very sorry, please excuse me. He turned and walked towards the courtyard exit. In the dining room's heavy atmosphere, Yuri Ne and Yuri Takeshiro exchanged glances, both looking somewhat bewildered. Amamiya Haruki gazed at Wang Mian's departing figure, and after a moment he too rose from his seat and walked in the direction Wang Mian had left. I'll go check on him, you two continue eating. Night had fallen. The towering buildings surrounding them emitted no light. The once neon-bright and bustling city, having lost 95% of its power, was now dark, like a large village filled with skyscrapers. Stars were scattered across the sky like silver fragments, and a bright moon illuminated the flowers and grass between the courtyards. Wang Mian stood alone in the shadows, his figure lonely and desolate. Amamiya Haruki walked up beside him, his wooden clogs clicking softly. Something on your mind? Amamiya Haruki asked casually, looking up at the stars. Wang Mian remained silent. From your appearance, you must have lost someone important. Amamiya Haruki shifted his gaze from Wang Mian's face. Wang Mian looked at him in surprise. How did you know? When my master died I was exactly like you are now. Amamiya Haruki spoke softly, not wanting to interact with people, not wanting to be involved in anything, just wanting to hide alone, immersed in grief and regret. Wang Mian slowly closed his eyes, not responding. Actually, I find something strange, Amamiya Haruki continued. Although you look to be in your 70s, you don't give me the feeling of an elderly person. Someone who has truly experienced such a long life should be accustomed to farewells. The light in your eyes is different from theirs. The feeling you give me is that of a peer. Perhaps. Wang Mian neither confirmed nor denied. Amamiya Haruki looked at him for a while, then shook his head helplessly. I'm not very good at comforting people, but I still want to remind you of something. Time doesn't flow backward. We are ultimately just humans, and one day we will all reach the end of our lifespan. The birth and death of life is an inevitable cause and effect in this world. We must ultimately look forward. Amamiya Haruki patted his shoulder. When Wang Mian heard these words, suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind. Time doesn't flow backward, we are ultimately just humans, and one day we will reach the end of our lifespan. Humans' lifespans have an end point. But what if he became a god? Wang Mian's murky, dim eyes gradually brightened. Time might not flow backward for others, but for Wang Mian that wasn't necessarily true. Time could flow backward, but the prerequisite was that he needed enough lifespan. As a mortal, he was now approaching the end of his lifespan, so he couldn't reverse time to save the other members of the Mask Squad. But what if he became a god? After becoming a god, would he have more lifespan? Did that mean he would once again have the qualification to reverse time and change that history? Earlier in the fishing village, when Whirlpool and the others heard that he had spent 20 years of his lifespan to change history, Wang Mian had comforted them by saying that after becoming a god, lifespan might be infinite. Although he had just said that randomly, what if it were true? Within 2 years, breakthrough to godhood, extend lifespan, reverse time, change history. This was Wang Mian's only choice. Wang Mian was like someone who had grabbed onto a lifeline, hope immediately igniting in his eyes. He had escaped the loop of the fishing village, but hadn't outrun time, and in fact quite the opposite. But his race against time was just beginning. Can becoming a god really be that easy? Currently among all humans, only Zhou Ping of Daxia Sword Immortals has retained the sword law and ascended to godhood. If Wang Mian wants to become a god, he must also possess his own law. But he's different from Zhou Ping. His divine domain comes from the time god rather than himself, so he can't retain laws like Zhou Ping did. Moreover, all the time laws in the world have already been divided up by the time gods of various divine nations. Unable to retain his own law and unable to obtain time law. Are divine agents destined to never become gods? Wang Mian fell silent. Beside him, Amamiya Hui sensed Wang Mian's emotional fluctuation and raised his eyebrows slightly. Come on, I'll take you to meet that person. Seeing Amamiya Hui turn to leave, Wang Mian hesitated for a moment before following his footsteps. Who exactly are you taking me to meet? Wang Mian couldn't help but ask. He's also from Daxiao and knows Qi Yi too. You two might even know each other. Wang Mian frowned in thought. Besides Team Nightfall, someone else had come to Japan's human circle? And they knew Lin Qi? Wang Mian thought for a long time but couldn't think of such a person, and his curiosity was piqued. The two walked out of the Kazamatsuri family's territory and headed towards remote alleyways. After several turns, they arrived in front of a small house. Amamiya Hui reached out and knocked on the door. A moment later, the door opened and a figure Wang Mian never expected to see stood quietly behind it. Wu Xiangnan. Wang Mian called out his name in surprise. Wu Xiangnan's gaze swept past Amamiya Hui and landed on Wang Mian, carefully examining this white-haired old man for a long while, confusion appearing in his eyes. Who are you? Wang Mian didn't speak, but silently took out the cracked Wang mask from his chest. Wu Xiangnan was stunned, staring at Wang Mian's aged face for a long time, his mouth agape in shock. Have a seat. It's a bit modest here, not as luxurious as the Kazamatsuri house. Wu Xiangnan carried a cup of hot tea from the kitchen, placed it in front of Wang Mian and smiled helplessly. After bringing Wang Mian here, Amamiya Hui had returned to the Kazamatsuri house first. After all, this was a reunion between two Daxia people and he couldn't understand Chinese anyway. Rather than being awkward later, it was better to simply exit. Wang Mian took the teacup and slowly took a sip. But this place feels more comfortable. Actually, the Kazamatsuri siblings and that young man who just brought you here are quite nice. But in a foreign land, Chinese still sounds more comforting. Wu Xiangnan smiled, his gaze falling on Wang Mian's wrinkled hand holding the cup. After hesitating for a moment, he asked, What happened to you? Are the other members of Team Mask also in Japan? Wang Mian slowly closed his eyes, a bitter smile appearing at the corners of his mouth. He told the whole story of what happened to Team Mask in the fishing village. After listening, Wu Xiangnan fell silent. He didn't know how to comfort Wang Mian, only reaching out to pat his shoulder gently. Don't blame yourself, it's not your fault. Wang Mian stared at Wu Xiangnan for a moment, then sighed. I know. I can curse fate in front of anyone else, but in front of you I don't have that right. Wu Xiangnan smiled bitterly. Wu Xiangnan was also the only survivor of Team Blue Rain. Their fates were very similar, but the difference was that Wang Mian still had a chance to change history, he still had hope, while Wu Xiangnan had nothing left except hatred. Wang Mian looked down at the teacup in his hands, sorrow flashing in his eyes as he murmured in confusion. First Team Medium, then Team Blue Rain, and now Team Mask. Tell me, is this the destiny of special teams? Wu Xiangnan was silent for a while, then shook his head. This isn't destiny. This is the inevitable end for special teams. All special teams carry an incredibly heavy responsibility from the moment they're formed. We never talk about retirement. Our mission is to fulfill our duty until the moment of sacrifice arrives. Special teams are formed, fight battles, sacrifice themselves, and leave their designation behind until the next special team inherits their mission. This is our legacy. Over the past 100 years, the Night Watchers have had many special teams. Compared to most of them, we're actually quite fortunate. When a special team is destroyed, it's inevitably because they encountered a situation far beyond their capabilities. In such cases there usually aren't any survivors, and since special team operations are classified, others don't know much about them. As time passes, except for those cold classified files and merits within the Night Watchers, no one can remember their former glory, and their legends will eventually become just a vague and secret history. Wu Xiangnan pointed at himself. But we're different. We are survivors. Even if that legendary history has been forgotten by everyone else, we can still remember the former glory, remember others' personalities, preferences, whether they snored in their sleep, what embarrassing things they did. As long as we're alive, our teams continue to exist. Looking into Wu Xiangnan's eyes, Wang Mian was stunned. After a long while he took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. I've learned something. Wu Xiangnan smiled. It took me a long time to understand this too. So have you let it go now? Wu Xiangnan's hand holding the cup paused slightly and he shook his head. Understanding doesn't mean letting go. Glory and legends can become history, but hatred cannot. So you're staying in Japan because you want to? Yes. Wu Xiangnan slowly took a sip of tea and said in an absolutely calm tone, revenge. Wang Mian was startled. If I remember correctly, the enemy that caused Team Blue Rain's destruction was Susanoo. Wu Xiangnan completed the sentence. The sea god of Takamagara, Susanoo. You want to go to Takamagara to seek revenge on Susanoo? Yes. That's a deity. I know. But you're still just a sea-level human. Wang Mian looked seriously into his eyes. You're going to your death. Do you think I'm the kind of fool who would mindlessly go to die? Moreover, I carry the glory of Team Blue Rain on my shoulders. Wu Xiangnan smiled slightly, stood up from his seat, walked to the window and looked up at the sky, speaking calmly. I have already found a way to kill Susanoo.